I lift this prayer for you, that grace and peace may surround you now and always.
Someone is interfering in your soulmate's life. The name will surprise you. Don't scroll, stay till the end, because this message is for you and your heart needs this right now, and I want you to notice how these words found you at this exact moment, because nothing about this timing is accidental and nothing about the confusion, heaviness, or emotional distance you've been sensing lately is random, and listen to this carefully, because the universe is speaking to you softly but firmly, the way it does when something important is happening behind the scenes, and there is a reason you felt that something is off without being able to explain it, a reason you've sensed resistance around your connection even though love still feels present, and this message is for you because someone is interfering in your soulmate's life, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly and persistently, influencing thoughts, emotions, and decisions in ways that have slowed alignment and clouded clarity. And your heart needs this right now because you've been questioning yourself. Wondering if you imagined the shift, wondering if you said the wrong thing, wondering if love somehow weakened, but don't ignore this, because what you are sensing is real, and listen to this, interference does not always come from an enemy, sometimes it comes from someone who believes they are helping, someone whose voice carries authority, history, or emotional weight, someone your soulmate trusts without realizing how much influence they hold. And that is why the name will surprise you. Because it is not the person your fear points to first, and don't scroll, because the universe is not revealing this to create anxiety, it is revealing this to bring awareness, and awareness is protection, and protection surrounds connections that are meant to last, and listen to this carefully. Your soulmate has been caught between what they feel in their heart and what they are hearing in their ear, between intuition and influence, between destiny and doubt, and that inner conflict is what you've been feeling as hesitation, inconsistency, or unexplained delay, and your heart needs this right now because you've been patient without understanding why patience was required, and patience was required because truth needed time to surface, and don't scroll, because this interference has not been strong enough to break the connection, only to slow it, only to test it, only to reveal whether love here is rooted in fear or truth. And listen to this, what is meant for you cannot be stolen. But it can be refined through delay, and this message is for you because your role right now is not to confront, not to compete, not to accuse, but to remain grounded, aligned, and emotionally steady, because steadiness exposes interference without creating conflict, and your heart needs this right now because reacting from fear would only add noise, while calm awareness allows truth to rise on its own, and listen to this carefully. The universe often allows third-party influence to appear so a soul can learn whose voice truly matters, and whose does not, and you may have noticed signs appearing lately, angel numbers like 222 when you think about balance and partnership, 555 when change feels inevitable but unclear, 444 when you feel protected even while uncertain, and these are not coincidences, they are confirmations that something external has been affecting the flow, but divine alignment is still active, and don't scroll, because this interference is also triggering a spiritual awakening in both of you, forcing your soulmate to question advice they once accepted without discernment, forcing you to trust intuition instead of anxiety, and listen to this, awakening is uncomfortable before it is liberating. Because it strips away illusion, and your heart needs this right now because you are learning the difference between patience and self-betrayal, between intuition and fear, between waiting in faith and waiting in confusion, and don't scroll, because the person interfering may not even realize the impact they are having, they may be speaking from their own wounds, their own regrets, their own unfinished story, and that is why the name will surprise you. Because it is someone familiar, someone normalized, someone whose influence has gone unquestioned. And listen to this carefully, familiarity does not equal alignment, and advice rooted in fear will always block love, even when it sounds logical, and your heart needs this right now because you've been feeling torn between trusting the process and protecting your heart, and this message is here to tell you that you do not need to fight for clarity. Clarity is coming. Because interference cannot survive awareness, and don't scroll. Because the universe is also watching how you handle this moment, whether you spiral into doubt or anchor into self-respect, whether you abandon your peace or protect it, and listen to this, protecting your peace is not indifference, it is wisdom, and wisdom keeps your energy clean while truth reveals itself. And your heart needs this right now because you are being prepared for what comes next, not punished, and listen to this carefully. When interference loses its power, it does so quietly. Through realization, through emotional maturity, through the recognition that some voices must be released for love to grow, and that realization is forming now, even if it hasn't been spoken yet, and don't scroll. Because this is only the first layer of revelation, the beginning of understanding, and what follows will ask you to stay calm, patient, and honest with yourself. And if something in your chest feels tight but relieved at the same time, if part of you is thinking, this explains so much, then trust that feeling, because that is intuition aligning with truth. And your heart needs this right now because you are not imagining the resistance, you are recognizing it, and recognition is the first step toward resolution, and the interference that has been affecting your soulmate's life will not remain hidden much longer, not because you force it, but because truth always surfaces when the time is right. And you are being guided, protected, and prepared for what comes next, even if you cannot see the full picture yet. Don't scroll, stay right here, because what I'm about to tell you now is where the picture becomes clearer and heavier at the same time, and your heart needs this right now even if part of you wants to look away, because this message is for you in a moment where awareness is replacing confusion, and listen to this carefully, the interference you sensed is not random and it did not begin yesterday. It has been building quietly over time, through repeated conversations, subtle opinions, emotional influence, and unspoken pressure that your soulmate has been absorbing without realizing how deeply it was shaping their choices, and your heart needs this right now because you may have felt like something external was pulling them away even when their feelings toward you never fully disappeared, and listen to this. When someone interferes in a soulmate connection, they rarely say, "Don't choose this person." Instead they plant doubt. They raise concerns disguised as care. They remind your soulmate of fears, past wounds, responsibilities, or obligations until intuition becomes harder to hear. And don't scroll, because this is important. Your soulmate has been standing between two voices, one that feels calm, true, and aligned when they think of you, and another that feels loud, logical, and fearful when they listen to this outside influence. And your heart needs this right now because that internal conflict is what you've been feeling as mixed signals, sudden pauses, emotional inconsistency, or unexplained delays. And listen to this carefully. This does not mean your soulmate is weak, it means they are human, and humans are influenced by the voices they trust, especially voices connected to family, history, or unresolved emotional bonds. And don't scroll, because the universe is not revealing this to turn you against anyone, it is revealing it so you stop turning against yourself. So you stop blaming your worth, your actions, or your timing for something that was never entirely within your control, and your heart needs this right now because you've been replaying conversations in your mind, wondering what you could have said differently, wondering if being more patient or more expressive would have changed things. And listen to this. This was not about you doing more or less. This was about discernment developing on the other side. And discernment takes time. Especially when someone has been conditioned to value certain opinions over their own inner truth. And don't scroll, because this interference has also served a purpose. Even if it has been painful, it has slowed the connection just enough to reveal whether it is built on dependency or destiny. And listen to this carefully, destiny connections are not destroyed by interference, they are clarified by it, because what is real survives pressure, and your heart needs this right now because you may have feared that delay meant loss. But delay here is exposure of which voices matter and which ones must eventually be released. And don't scroll, because the universe has been sending signs to both of you during this phase, angel numbers appearing not to rush action but to confirm protection. For 44 when you felt guarded yet strangely calm, 555 when you sensed inevitable change even without knowing how it would arrive, 22 when balance felt close but blocked. And these signs are reminders that divine alignment is still active even when human interference creates noise. And listen to this, noise cannot cancel destiny, it can only delay recognition, and your heart needs this right now because recognition is forming now, slowly but surely. And don't scroll, because the person interfering may not even realize they are doing harm. They may genuinely believe they are protecting your soulmate, projecting their own fears, regrets, or unresolved pain onto the situation. And listen to this carefully, people often interfere from their own wounds, not from wisdom, and your heart needs this right now because understanding this prevents bitterness, and bitterness would only tie you energetically to the interference instead of freeing you from it. And don't scroll, because the universe is also observing how you respond to this knowledge. Whether you become reactive or reflective, whether you allow fear to harden your awareness to strengthen you. And listen to this, strength here does not mean confrontation, it means clarity within yourself, knowing what you deserve without demanding it from the wrong place. And your heart needs this right now because calm self-respect is more powerful than any argument you could make. And don't scroll, because this interference has forced a spiritual awakening in you, even if you didn't ask for it, awakening you to the difference between intuition and attachment, between waiting in faith and waiting in fear, between patience and self-neglect. And listen to this carefully, these distinctions matter, because soulmate love does not require you to lose yourself while waiting, it requires you to stay aligned while truth unfolds. And your heart needs this right now because alignment is what protects you regardless of outcome. And don't scroll, because the universe is also working on your soulmate during this phase, slowly weakening the influence of the interfering voice by creating internal discomfort, moments where advice that once felt logical now feels heavy, moments where doubt no longer brings peace, moments where thinking of you brings calm while listening to others brings tension. And listen to this, when tension increases, discernment follows, and discernment always leads back to truth. And your heart needs this right now because this process cannot be rushed without damaging what is meant to be real. And don't scroll, because this message is also asking you not to step into the role of savior, competitor, or victim. You are not meant to fight this interference head-on, you are meant to outgrow it energetically. And listen to this carefully, when you remain steady, emotionally grounded, and self-respecting, interference loses power naturally, because it feeds on fear, insecurity, and reaction. And your heart needs this right now because your calm is not weakness, it is wisdom. And don't scroll, because the universe is Preparing a shift where the interfering influence will be recognized for what it is, not through accusation, but through realization, and realization is far more lasting than confrontation. And listen to this, when your soulmate realizes that a certain voice creates fear while another creates peace, the choice becomes inevitable, even if it takes time to act on it. And your heart needs this right now because time is working in your favor, not against you. And don't scroll, because this phase is also teaching you something essential, that love meant for you will not require you to beg for clarity forever, that what is aligned will eventually choose alignment openly. And listen to this carefully, if something must be forced, it is not ready, and if it is ready, it will move without pressure. And your heart needs this right now because pressure has never brought you peace, and peace is the signal you are learning to trust. And don't scroll, because this is still unfolding, not finished, not concluded. And what you are being asked to do now is remain present, protect your energy, and trust that interference cannot survive awareness. And listen to this, awareness is already spreading, on both sides. And that is why this message reached you now, not earlier, because earlier you might have reacted, but now you can respond wisely. And your heart needs this right now because wisdom is the bridge between waiting and clarity. And don't scroll, because this is not the end of the story. This is the middle, where understanding replaces confusion, where fear begins to loosen, and where destiny quietly reasserts itself. And if you feel a strange mix of heaviness and relief while hearing this, trust that feeling, because relief means truth is aligning, even before it is spoken out loud. And your heart needs this right now because you are not being left in the dark, you are being guided through it, step by step, until everything hidden comes into the light. Don't scroll, stay with me, because what I'm about to share now is where the spiritual tension you've been feeling begins to make sense, and your heart needs this right now even if part of you is tired of holding unanswered questions, because this message is for you at a moment when truth is no longer hiding quietly, it's pressing forward. And listen to this carefully. The interference affecting your soulmate's life has reached a point where it can no longer operate in the shadows the way it once did, because awareness has started to rise inside them, slowly, unevenly, but undeniably. And that awareness is uncomfortable, because once someone begins to notice how a certain voice makes them feel restricted, anxious, or disconnected from their own intuition, they cannot unhear it. And your heart needs this right now because you may have felt a subtle change recently, not dramatic, not obvious, but a shift in energy, moments where your soulmate seemed more reflective, quieter, more distant from the interfering influence. And listen to this, distance from interference often looks like confusion before it looks like clarity, because letting go of familiar voices feels like loss even when those voices were harmful. And don't scroll, because this phase is not about sudden decisions, it's about internal reckoning. And internal reckoning takes time, especially when someone has been taught to value approval, loyalty, or obligation over inner peace. And your heart needs this right now because you've been sensing that the resistance you felt earlier is changing form, becoming less about blockage and more about hesitation. And listen to this carefully, hesitation is not rejection, hesitation is someone standing at the edge of truth, unsure whether they are ready to step fully into it. And don't scroll, because the universe is still involved deeply here, gently disrupting old patterns, creating moments where the interfering advice no longer brings comfort, where doubt no longer feels justified, where thinking of you brings a sense of calm that other voices cannot provide. And listen to this, calm is the language of alignment. And your heart needs this right now because alignment is beginning to assert itself again, even if it's subtle, even if it's slow. And don't scroll, because this message is also about how you are being tested now, not tested in patience alone, but tested in self-trust, whether you believe what your intuition has been showing you, or whether you fall back into self-doubt when progress doesn't look the way you imagined. And listen to this carefully, progress in soulmate connections rarely looks linear, it looks like spirals, revisiting similar emotions at deeper levels, and your heart needs this right now because you've been here before, but you're responding differently now, with more awareness, more restraint, more emotional maturity. And don't scroll, because that difference matters. Your growth is changing the dynamic. Even when you're not speaking, because energy responds to energy, and when you stop feeding fear, fear loses power. And listen to this, the interference that once felt heavy is weakening not because you confronted it, but because you stopped reacting to it. And your heart needs this right now because non-reaction is not indifference, it is sovereignty. And sovereignty is deeply unsettling to any influence that thrives on emotional dependence or control. And don't scroll, because the universe is also using this phase to teach your soulmate something crucial, that love does not demand allegiance to others' opinions, that choosing happiness does not equal betrayal, that listening to intuition is not selfish. And listen to this carefully. These lessons are not learned through lectures, they are learned through experience, and your presence, even at a distance, has been part of that experience. And your heart needs this right now because you may not realize how deeply your steadiness contrasts with the pressure coming from the interfering voice. And don't scroll, because contrast creates clarity, and clarity is approaching. And you may have noticed angel numbers appearing again, not as frequently, but more pointedly. 111 when you're thinking about new beginnings but feel hesitant, 333 when communication feels blocked yet emotionally charged, 66 when emotional balance feels off and correction is needed. And these signs are not warnings, they are confirmations that a shift is underway. And listen to this. Shifts often feel destabilizing before they feel right, and your heart needs this right now because you're learning not to equate discomfort with danger. And don't scroll, because this message is also asking you to release the urge to predict outcomes, to stop asking when, and start anchoring into who you are being during this season. And listen to this carefully. Who you are being now will determine how the next chapter unfolds, and your heart needs this right now because you are choosing dignity over desperation, awareness over assumption, and trust over control. And don't scroll, because the universe is also quietly limiting the reach of the interfering influence, not by removing it abruptly, but by reducing its emotional impact, making its advice feel hollow, repetitive, or heavy. And listen to this, when advice no longer brings peace, people stop listening, even if it takes time to admit it. And your heart needs this right now because that disengagement is already beginning. And don't scroll, because the interference has also revealed something important about you, that you are capable of loving without losing yourself, waiting without abandoning your needs, trusting without becoming naive. And listen to this carefully, those qualities are rare. And rare qualities attract real love, not surface level attachment. And your heart needs this right now because you are no longer willing to fight for a place that requires you to betray your peace. And don't scroll, because this phase is also about forgiveness, not necessarily forgiveness of the interfering person, but forgiveness of the situation. Forgiveness of the delay, forgiveness of yourself for moments of doubt. And listen to this, forgiveness releases emotional hooks. And emotional hooks are what interference feeds on, and your heart needs this right now because releasing resentment keeps you aligned with truth instead of entangled in conflict. And don't scroll, because the universe is preparing a moment of realization on your soulmate side, a moment where they recognize that certain voices have been shaping their fear rather than protecting their heart, and listen to this carefully. That realization will not come through argument, it will come through feeling, through emotional exhaustion, through the recognition that peace has been missing, and your heart needs this right now because peace is what your energy offers naturally. And don't scroll, because when peace becomes noticeable by its absence, people seek its source, and that source leads back to alignment. And listen to this, alignment does not announce itself loudly, it returns quietly, steadily, and with intention, and your heart needs this right now because you are closer to that return than you think. And don't scroll, because this story is still unfolding, and what you are being asked to do now is remain observant, grounded, and compassionate without compromising yourself. And listen to this carefully, compassion does not mean tolerating confusion forever, it means allowing truth to surface without adding chaos. And your heart needs this right now because you are learning how to hold space without losing boundaries. And don't scroll, because the universe is reminding you that interference cannot override destiny, it can only reveal what needs to be healed before destiny can move forward freely. And listen to this, healing is happening, even if it's invisible, and your heart needs this right now because invisible work often produces the most lasting change. And don't scroll, because this is not the end of the interference story, but it is the beginning of its unraveling, and unraveling always starts with awareness, and awareness has already arrived, first in you, and now slowly in them, and that is why you're here, hearing this now, because timing is aligning, even if outcomes are not yet visible, and your heart needs this right now because you are not being left behind, you are being guided through the middle of the story, where understanding replaces fear, and where truth begins to loosen the grip of everything that does not belong. Don't scroll, stay with me, because what I'm about to speak now is where the unseen pressure begins to crack, and your heart needs this right now even if you feel emotionally tired from holding hope and restraint at the same time, because this message is for you at a moment when the universe is actively rearranging what has been interfering. And listen to this carefully. The influence that once felt strong in your soulmate's life is starting to lose its grip, not because someone confronted it directly, but because truth has a way of exhausting anything built on fear, control, or outdated loyalty. And your heart needs this right now because you may have noticed signs that the dynamic is shifting again, subtle but meaningful changes, moments where your soulmate seems less certain of the advice they once followed, moments where their emotions feel heavier after listening to certain voices. And listen to this, heaviness is a signal. It tells the soul when something no longer aligns. And don't scroll, because this phase is uncomfortable for your soulmate in ways they may not fully understand yet. They are beginning to feel the internal cost of interference, the tension between who they are becoming and who they are being told to be, and that tension creates restlessness, withdrawal, silence, or emotional inconsistency, not because love has faded, but because discernment is awakening. And your heart needs this right now because you've been interpreting that restlessness as distance from you, when in reality it is distance from influence. And listen to this carefully, when someone begins to question the voices around them, they often pull inward before they step forward, because clarity is formed in quiet. And don't scroll, because the universe is also working with timing here, slowly reducing the emotional authority of the interfering person by allowing contradictions to surface. Advice that once sounded logical now feels repetitive, advice that once felt protective now feels limiting. And listen to this, when words stop bringing peace, they stop carrying power, and your heart needs this right now because power is shifting, even if it's not visible yet. And don't scroll, because this message is also about how you are being asked to show up during this unraveling, not as someone who demands answers, but as someone who embodies stability, because stability creates contrast, and contrast exposes truth faster than confrontation ever could, and listen to this carefully. Your calm presence, even at a distance, is quietly highlighting how chaotic certain influences feel by comparison, and your heart needs this right now because you may not realize how much your grounded energy has been affecting the situation, even without words. And don't scroll, because this phase is also teaching you restraint, not silence born of fear, but restraint born of wisdom, the kind that says, I will not speak from anxiety, I will not react from insecurity. And listen to this, that kind of restraint protects your dignity and keeps your intuition clear, and your heart needs this right now because dignity is magnetic, and magnetism shifts dynamics without effort. And don't scroll, because the universe is also clearing emotional fog around you, helping you see that you were never meant to compete with interference, you were meant to outgrow it. And listen to this carefully. Competition feeds fear, but growth starves it, and your heart needs this right now because you've chosen growth, even when it meant sitting with discomfort instead of forcing resolution. And don't scroll, because angel numbers may be appearing again during this phase, but differently than before, not as warnings, but as confirmations. 7 hours 77 minutes when inner wisdom is strengthening, 8 hours 88 minutes when power dynamics are shifting, 11 when new clarity wants to enter but patience is still required. And listen to this, these signs are the universe saying, stay aligned, stay steady, you are not being delayed without purpose, and your heart needs this right now because purpose is unfolding quietly. And don't scroll, because the interfering influence is beginning to feel exposed, even if no one has named it yet, exposed not publicly, but internally, through emotional exhaustion, through the realization that repeating the same advice has not brought peace. And listen to this carefully, when repetition fails to soothe, people start seeking new answers. And your heart needs this right now because those new answers lead back to intuition, and intuition leads back to alignment. And don't scroll, because your soulmate is also experiencing a subtle awakening in this phase, becoming aware of how often they've silenced their own feelings to keep others comfortable, how often they've delayed happiness to meet expectations. And listen to this, awareness like this is destabilizing at first, because it forces honest self-reflection, and your heart needs this right now because destabilization often precedes liberation. And don't scroll, because the universe is also teaching you something essential here, that love does not always advance loudly, sometimes it advances through restraint, patience, and emotional maturity. And listen to this carefully. Maturity is not passive, it is intentional calm, and your heart needs this right now because you are practicing intentional calm even when your emotions are strong. And don't scroll, because this phase is also revealing who you are when you are not being chosen openly yet, whether you remain kind without becoming self-sacrificing, whether you remain open without becoming exposed, whether you remain loving without abandoning your boundaries. And listen to this, those qualities matter more than any declaration, because they determine whether love will be safe when it arrives fully. And your heart needs this right now because you are becoming someone who can hold clarity without needing to control it. And don't scroll, because the universe is also slowly creating situations where the interfering voice contradicts itself, says one thing one day and another the next, creating confusion instead of certainty. And listen to this carefully, confusion is the beginning of detachment, because people stop trusting guidance that doesn't feel consistent. And your heart needs this right now because detachment from interference opens space for truth. and don't scroll, because this message is also reminding you not to romanticize the struggle. This phase is not meant to be endured forever, it is meant to be completed, and listen to this, completion happens when lessons are learned, not when force is applied, and your heart needs this right now because you are learning the lesson of self-trust deeply. And don't scroll, because self-trust is what anchors you. Regardless of outcome, and anchored people are not easily shaken by external influence, and listen to this carefully, the more anchored you become, the less power interference has over the situation, and your heart needs this right now because anchoring is happening now, even if it feels slow. And don't scroll, because the universe is preparing the ground for a moment of truth. A moment when your soulmate can no longer ignore the emotional difference between alignment and interference, between peace and pressure. And listen to this, that moment does not come with fireworks, it comes with quiet certainty, and your heart needs this right now because certainty is forming quietly. And don't scroll, because this is still the middle of the story, the unraveling phase where tension loosens and clarity begins to breathe, and what you are being asked to do now is stay present, protect your energy, and trust that interference cannot survive awareness forever. And listen to this carefully. Awareness has already shifted the balance, even if words have not yet caught up, and your heart needs this right now because you are not waiting blindly anymore, you are waiting with understanding, and understanding changes everything. And don't scroll, because what is being dismantled now is not your connection, but everything that stood in the way of it moving forward honestly. And that dismantling is happening exactly as it needs to, even if you cannot see the full shape of what comes next yet. Don't scroll, listen to me for just a little longer, because this final whisper is meant to settle your spirit, not stir your fear, and your heart needs this right now after everything you've carried through this season, because sometimes after truth is revealed and interference loses its power, the soul still needs reassurance, and I am giving you that now. And hear me clearly, you are not standing in uncertainty anymore. You are standing in transition, and transition can feel quiet, even anticlimactic, after so much inner tension, but quiet does not mean empty, it means stable, and stability is where real love finally grows. And listen to this carefully. What you are feeling now, this strange calm mixed with lingering questions, is not confusion, it is integration, it is your heart adjusting to the fact that you no longer need to stay on alert, you no longer need to read between every line, you no longer need to protect yourself from what is already losing its grip, and your heart needs this right now because you've been in survival mode emotionally longer than you realized. And survival mode cannot coexist with peace. So I am easing you out of it gently, and listen to this, the connection you care about is no longer surrounded by the same noise, the same pull, the same outside pressure. Even if you don't see dramatic changes yet, the atmosphere has shifted, and atmosphere matters more than words, because atmosphere determines what can grow. And your heart needs this right now because growth does not announce itself loudly, it proves itself through consistency, through ease, through the absence of fear. And don't scroll, because I want you to release the habit of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Release the belief that love must be tested endlessly to be real, release the idea that calm means something is missing, and listen to me. Calm means something has healed, and healing is never boring, it is sacred, and your heart needs this right now because you are learning a new emotional language, one that does not revolve around anxiety, intensity, or constant reassurance, but around trust, presence, and mutual respect. And don't scroll, because I am also asking you to turn some of that attention back to yourself now. Back to your joy, your purpose, your body, your breath, because love that is meant to walk with you will not require you to put your life on pause. And listen to this carefully: when you choose yourself without closing your heart, you send a signal to the universe that you are ready for mature love, and your heart needs this right now because you are ready, even if part of you still feels cautious, and caution is okay. Wisdom always walks alongside hope, and don't scroll. Because this is where I leave you, not with suspense, but with grounding, not with warning, but with peace. And remember this: when old thoughts try to return, interference had a season, but it does not have a future. Fear had a voice, but it does not have authority. And love that is meant for you will not slip away quietly. It will step forward clearly, when the time is right, and rest in that now, because you are not behind. You are not mistaken, and you are not alone. You are guided, protected, and exactly where you need to be.